First, let's discuss a number of issues with my regular guest, political and social commentator James Melville. Welcome, James.
Hi, Kevin. You well?
I'm very well. Now, you are very interested in ecological issues. What did you make of Rishi's dramatic U-turn yesterday on all of the government's green pledges? It's being called the bonfire of the green pledges. So all of a sudden, he's not going to ban petrol and diesel cars, new ones, by 2030. All of a sudden, he isn't going to fine us or even potentially send us to prison for not installing heat pumps. All of a sudden, the government's entire approach to greenery has changed. They see it now as a vote winner to tell people we won't make you poorer and colder. The only mystery to me is they ever thought it was a vote winner to do that, to make people poorer and colder. It's as if a great shaft of light has descended upon Downing Street and suddenly he's had this kind of epiphany. Why did he feel that for so long that this is what people wanted, to be colder and poorer?
Well, I think he was going along with the agendas, and maybe their own internal research might have suggested that this was the right thing to do, even though it was crass logic. I think it's a byproduct of what's happened in recent by-elections. I think the Tories see this as something that, in terms of the net zero agenda, the public don't buy, and they're potentially losing votes. And it also blindsides Labour a little bit as well in the run-up to the next election. It's done purely for political reasons.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but good. I still think it's good. I know you're very keen on eco issues, but it cannot be at the expense of British citizens' quality of life, and that's what it was. We've been charged hundreds of pounds levies on our energy bills. We're being told you can't drive petrol cars, you shouldn't fly to Spain for your annual holiday, and so on and so forth. That's not a vote winner. You're right, it's political, but I think it's a good thing, don't you?
Completely, I do. I mean, I'm an old school environmentalist. I believe in basically trying to, in inverted commas, save the planet, about land and the sea and the air, cut pollution and so on. Give as much support to farmers who are the true environmentalists and so on. But I'm not a supporter of net zero. I think it is crass logic, a whiff of corporatism whereby we are paying more taxes for giant corporates to get a lot of subsidies, and solutions that hammer the poor. ULEZ being a perfect example of that. And then there's also the gross hypocrisy in things like electric cars, which are, in terms of the battery, the cobalt component plundered from the fields of Congo with child slaves. And also, the numbers don't add up. China emits more carbon than the rest of the developed world put together.
Yeah.
So maybe there should be a discussion had about that, rather than putting draconian measures in place that hammer the vulnerable and the poor, enterprises and business, and day-to-day life as well. A lot of it is disruptive, a lot of it is crass logic, and a lot of it damages the economy. So from putting all that together, it's the right thing to do. But yes, he has framed it around political motives running up to the next election.
Well, I mean, good for him, I say, because it certainly put Keir Starmer on the back foot. And, of course, Keir Starmer's response to it, almost incredibly, politically illiterate, if you ask me, is to say, well, if Labour get in, we'll bring back the ban on petrol and diesel cars in 2030. Why does he think that's a vote winner?
I mean, Labour seem to be doing every single attempt not to win the election. They've got this election in the palm of their hand if they want, largely because of the economy. People don't really buy into Sunak, and they're basically bored and fed up with this government. It's time for a change. But Labour aren't offering that effective change. I think on net zero, on the other side of the election, there should be a referendum on net zero. It is time to let the people decide on this actually hugely significant issue, and we can get both sides of the debate out on this. Not just on one aspect of environmentalism, and not accuse people of being climate change deniers because they're against net zero. What people are against, like the COVID response in a lot of cases, is crass logic solutions, draconian and authoritarian measures that basically the public are not going to buy anymore. And it's time for a referendum on this.
Really good point. So do you think that anybody in the entire country, I'm talking about ordinary hard-working citizens, give a flying fig that Britain is the world seen as a world leader in cutting back carbon emissions in our green policies. That's what they think in Westminster, that we're all going around going, well, my life's a lot worse than it used to be. I'm not allowed to drive my car, and my energy bills are soaring, much higher than they've ever been, and they don't want me to go on holiday to Spain. But at least Britain is a world leader in battling carbon emissions. Why do they think any of us give a damn about that?
Yes, highfalutin talk from people in their ivory towers and gross hypocrisy. These are the same individuals who at COP conferences and summits wang on about net zero, and most of them fly there on private jet.
Yeah.
And they travel by motorcade.
I know.
It's ridiculous. You've got that Bill Gates, for instance, going on about this, yet he buys private jet companies, and he's got a fleet of them. He says it's his guilty pleasure. Prince Harry does the same thing. It's what Charles is doing in France at the moment.
He could have gone by train, couldn't he? Why did he go by plane and then stand on the Champs-Elysees watching a massive, great flyover? I mean, the hypocrisy is off the scale.
It is, and that's what people see. So they're having to deal with these stupid draconian measures like ULEZ, which does target the poor and the vulnerable. And meanwhile, the highfalutin lot are clinking their glasses at whatever summit it might be, telling us plebs to basically do our bit and save the planet. And they impose all these stupid draconian measures that aren't going to make a blind bit of difference. If you want to have a discussion about net zero emissions, then that discussion should fundamentally be had with China and India, rather than what is happening here. And yes, they can go on and say, look at Britain, aren't we fantastic? You know, we're lowering emissions. But actually what's happening is it's causing collateral damages in so many other ways, in particular on the economy, in particular people's livelihoods and disruption, and also the premise that we are paying increased levies and taxes to subsidise solutions that, quite frankly, are not going to make much difference. But what it is going to make a lot of difference to is people's day-to-day lives and ability to run their lives effectively and also manage their businesses effectively. We've got too many measures on this that are just pure crass logic, implemented and enforced by individuals who do not behave like that themselves, in particular some of our political leaders.
Yeah, like Zach Goldsmith criticising the government like crazy, criticising his own party for this U-turn. This is a guy who has never known financial hardship in his life, multi-zillionaire, got about 3 mansions, and this is the problem. All these people, it's do as I say, not what I do. Before you go, James, I want to get your take on John Venables, the killer of poor little Jamie Bulger all those years ago. Unlike his accomplice, Robert Thompson, who seems to have got his life together and we've never heard of him since. John Venables has lived a very nefarious life, went to jail for a fray back in 2008 and is currently in jail serving a pretty long sentence for possessing more than 1,000 images, paedophile images of poor little kids. Now, if they let this guy out, he's a danger to the public, he's a danger to children, and yet the parole board has granted him a 2-day hearing in November. Now, I don't mind the fact he gets a hearing. That's the legal process. Everybody should have a chance to say, let me out if they can. What I don't like is the parole board, because I don't trust it to make the right decision. It habitually makes wrong decisions about letting dangerous criminals out onto the streets. John Venables is definitely a danger. You know, basically, the parole board, do you trust it to make the right decision here? Because I don't.
No, I don't. I think most of the public would agree with everything that you've said, Kevin. I think the family should be the ones who should be considered first and foremost with this. You know, what is the definition of justice? And also, what is the risk attached to that? I'm deeply uncomfortable about this, and I think the majority of people in the country would share the same sentiments. In particular, the most important people in the arena of the story, the family. Mm-hmm. I think we're running a risk here, and I think we've got to get to a point whereby, yes, the processes have to be put in place. That's part of our system. But at the same time, what we've got to do is make sure that the wishes and regards of the family is the priority here. But I think going down this route poses a huge risk And I think if anyone was in the position of the family, they would be saying the same thing, expressing the same concerns, which they are. And I think, our political leaders, I think, need to get involved on this one. It's not stopping the process, justice and law, but there needs to be huge consideration about what the cause and effect of any decision is on this.
Agreed. And Denise Fergus, Jamie's mum, says if you let this guy out, he will kill another kid. Reflect on that. James, great to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for your time. James Melville, their political and social commentator.